San Francisco is alive with counterculture, Vietnam protests, and the rise of a new kind of cool. Then, out of nowhere, a Highland green Mustang fastback barrels through the city's steep streets, tires howling, hubcaps flying. Behind the wheel, Steve McQueen, Hollywood's king of cool. The movie was Bullitt. The car became legend. And yet, the Mustang that starred in that iconic chase wasn't just any Mustang. It was flawed, improvised, and full of secrets Ford never expected you to learn. From vanished stunt cars to mismatched wheels, from hidden repairs to decades lost in obscurity, the Bullitt Mustang is as mysterious as it is legendary. And wait until you hear why number 1 almost didn't survive at all. The 1968 Bullitt Mustang matters because it transcended being just a car. It became cinema's most famous chase vehicle, a rolling symbol of grit and rebellion. Unlike polished movie props, it was beaten, modified, and nearly scrapped, only to re-emerge as one of the most valuable Mustangs on Earth. That's why today, we're diving into 20 weird facts you didn't know about the Bullitt Mustang. From Hollywood improvisations to collector controversies, these facts will change how you see it forever. And if you love hidden car stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. 2 cars, 2 stories. Here's the kicker. There wasn't just one Bullitt Mustang. There were 2. Warner Brothers purchased a pair of identical Highland green 1968 Mustang GT fastbacks for filming. Both carried 390 cubic inch V8s and 4-speed manuals, but they had different fates. The hero car was used for close-ups with McQueen, cleaner, more intact, built to look good on camera. The stunt car was heavily modified for the chase scenes, fitted with beefed-up suspensions, welded reinforcements, and camera mounts. It absorbed the brutal jumps and crashes across San Francisco. Here's the twist. After filming, the stunt car was sold for scraps. It ended up in a Mexican junkyard, buried in dust for decades before being rediscovered in 2017. The hero car? That one vanished into private ownership, its whereabouts a mystery for almost half a century. Collectors today worship both cars, but for different reasons. The hero car is pristine history. The stunt car is battle-scarred legend. Spotter's tip. The stunt car had crude welded patches and cut panels for camera rigs, details restorers later confirmed when the car resurfaced. The fact that 2 cars carried one cinematic legacy adds layers of mystique. And if you think that's wild, number 19 shows how one of them nearly lost its identity altogether, thanks to missing VIN plates. The vanishing VIN mystery. Every Mustang has a VIN, vehicle identification number, etched into its metal identity. But here's the twist. The Bullitt stunt car lost its VIN plate. During filming, the car endured brutal punishment. High jumps, hard landings, smashed suspensions. Mechanics constantly repaired it, between takes. At one point, the inner fenders and radiator supports were replaced, which meant the stamped VINs were cut away. That made the stunt car technically untraceable. Without its serial numbers, it could have been sold off as just another junkyard Mustang. When it resurfaced decades later in Mexico, skeptics questioned if it was really the Bullitt car. What proved it? Subtle details, reinforcement welds, unique modifications, and matching film footage scars. Mustang experts authenticated it despite the missing plate. Collectors today see this as both terrifying and thrilling. Imagine owning the world's most famous Mustang, but with no VIN to prove it. Spotter's tip. The surviving Bullitt stunt car carries scars under the rear frame rails from the San Francisco jumps. No clone can fake those bends. The VIN mystery reminds us that this wasn't a pampered show car. It was a movie tool, beaten into legend. And if you think paperwork confusion is wild, number 18 proves Hollywood even improvised with the car's most famous wheels. The hubcaps that wouldn't stay on. Watch the chase scene closely. Every time the green Mustang screeches around a corner, hubcaps fly off. Over and over. By the end of the sequence, the car seems to lose more hubcaps than it had to begin with. Here's the kicker. It wasn't continuity error. It was reality. The Mustang's stock wheel covers simply couldn't survive the pounding of the stunt jumps and skids. Director Peter Yates decided to leave it in, arguing that it gave the chase a raw, unpredictable feel. Ironically, those flying hubcaps became part of the scene's authenticity. Fans later joked that Bullitt must have carried a trunk full of spare hubcaps. In truth, the car often ran without them between takes. Collectors today obsess over this detail, and restorers of tribute cars debate whether to include removable hubcaps for accuracy. Spotter's tip. The original Bullitt Mustangs ran on American Racing torque thrust wheels during filming, not stock Ford steel wheels. The hubcap shots came from early takes before the switch. If you see stills with shiny covers, that's pre-chase filming. What started as a production nuisance became an immortal quirk. And if hubcaps flying off sounds chaotic, number 17 shows how Bullitt's chase almost didn't happen at all, because Warner Brothers nearly refused to film it. Warner Brothers didn't want the chase. It's hard to believe today, but the studio behind Bullitt almost killed its defining sequence. Warner Brothers executives balked at the idea of a 10-minute car chase. They feared it would slow the movie's pacing, inflate the budget, and alienate audiences who wanted more dialogue and less rubber burning. Here's the kicker. Steve McQueen himself fought for it. McQueen, a car enthusiast and racer, insisted the chase was essential to the film's realism. He personally lobbied director Peter Yates and producers, arguing that audiences had never seen anything like it. To sell the idea, McQueen even offered to perform much of the driving himself, reducing stunt costs. The result became one of the most influential chases in cinema history, but it nearly died in the boardroom before it ever reached the streets of San Francisco. Collectors and film buffs today see this as proof of McQueen's vision. Without his persistence, the Bullitt Mustang might have been just another green fastback. Spotter's tip. McQueen is clearly driving in some of the close-up shots, but his stunt double Bud Ekins handled the wildest jumps. And if you think studio resistance was wild, number 16 proves that even local authorities tried to shut the chase down, because San Francisco wasn't built for movie chaos. San Francisco wanted to shut it down. Filming a high-speed chase through San Francisco wasn't easy. The city is built on steep hills, packed neighborhoods, and tight intersections. Local officials feared accidents, property damage, and public backlash. So when Warner Brothers proposed racing 2 muscle cars at full tilt, city authorities hesitated. Here's the twist. Steve McQueen personally negotiated with San Francisco's mayor, Joseph Alioto. McQueen promised the crew would respect residents, compensate for damages, and keep stunts controlled. Permits were eventually granted, but not without conditions. Even so, chaos broke out. Residents complained of sleepless nights, smashed curbs, and near misses. Police escorts were used to shut down streets, but many locals claimed stunt cars blasted through without warning. One story says a parked car was accidentally destroyed and quietly paid off. Collectors today see the chase not just as movie magic, but civic rebellion. Hollywood bending an entire city to its will. Spotter's tip. Look closely in the background of some chase shots. You'll see puzzled pedestrians who weren't extras at all, just locals caught in the madness. The chase may have made San Francisco immortal on film, but at the time, it nearly got the plug pulled. And if you think the city's complaints were intense, number 15 reveals how the Dodge Charger almost stole the spotlight from the Mustang entirely. 15. The Charger almost stole the show. Here's the kicker. The Dodge Charger in Bullitt was so menacing. Some argue it nearly upstaged the Mustang. Painted black, riding on wide tires, and packing a 440 cubic inch Magnum 5.8, the Charger looked more like the villain's perfect getaway car than just a foil. In fact, director Peter Yates originally worried audiences might cheer for the Charger instead. Why? Because it looked more intimidating, handled the stunts smoothly, and seemed faster on film. Stunt drivers even admitted the Charger outperformed the Mustang in terms of raw muscle. To balance the scene, they choreographed moments where the Mustang caught up artificially, because in reality, the Charger often pulled ahead during practice runs. Collectors today know this rivalry sparked one of cinema's greatest car duels, Ford versus Dodge, muscle versus muscle. Spotter's tip: the Charger used in filming had reinforced suspension and special exhaust cutouts for sound. No factory Charger sounded that raw. Ironically, many fans left theaters more impressed by the Charger's presence than the Mustang's. But McQueen's star power and the Mustang's close-up screen time sealed the legend. And if you think the rival's dominance is surprising, number 14 shows how even the Mustang's soundtrack wasn't entirely real. The engine sound was dubbed. When you hear the Bullitt Mustang growl on screen, you're not always hearing the car itself. Here's the twist. Much of the sound was overdubbed in post-production. The Mustang's 390 V8 sounded good, but director Peter Yates wanted something rawer, more cinematic. So sound editors layered recordings of different engines, including higher compression Ford V8s, to exaggerate the car's roar. They even spliced audio inconsistently. Gear shifts didn't always match RPMs, and acceleration sounds sometimes looped. The result? A soundtrack that made the chase feel even more visceral, even if it wasn't accurate. Car buffs love pointing out how the Mustang shifts endlessly, as if McQueen's 4-speed gearbox had 10 forward gears. In reality, it was movie magic. Collectors don't hold this against the Bullitt car. It's part of the legend. Spotter's tip: real 390 Mustangs have a deeper, lazier rumble than the high-strung scream you hear on film. If you ever compare side by side, you'll spot the difference immediately. Ironically, the Charger's sound was closer to authentic. It needed fewer dubs. Yet audiences still walked away believing the Mustang sounded angrier. And if fake engine sounds surprise you, number 13 reveals how the movie's editing also bent reality, especially when it came to San Francisco geography. The impossible chase route. If you try to follow the Bullitt chase route on a map of San Francisco, you'll quickly get lost. Why? Because the editing made the Mustang and Charger jump all over the city in impossible ways. One moment, they're racing near Fisherman's Wharf. The next, they're suddenly miles away in Potrero Hill. Then, they're back downtown. Streets don't connect the way the film suggests. It was pure editing trickery, designed to make the chase flow cinematically. Here's the kicker. Local San Franciscans noticed immediately. They joked that McQueen must have owned a teleporting Mustang. But most audiences didn't care. The jumps, skids, and engine screams overshadowed any geographical nonsense. Collectors and film tourists today still retrace the chase, snapping photos at iconic intersections. Spotter's tip: look for the famous Taylor Street Hill jump sequence, where the Mustang bounces so violently you can see daylight under all 4 wheels. That jump caused significant undercarriage damage, which restorers later confirmed on the stunt car. The impossible chase route reminds us that cinema is about illusion, not accuracy. And yet, Those illusions made San Francisco's hills immortal. If you think geography bending is odd, number 12 shows how even the tires on the Mustang played tricks on the audience. The tire swap trick. Watch closely during the chase, and you'll spot something strange. The Mustang's tires keep changing. One shot shows narrow white walls. Another shows fat black performance tires. Sometimes it even switches mid-sequence. Here's the twist. It wasn't continuity sloppiness. The film crew intentionally swapped tires between takes, depending on what stunt they were shooting. Skinny white walls were used for close-ups because they looked stock and period correct. Wider black wall tires were fitted for jumps and hard cornering, providing grip and durability. But the swaps weren't always consistent, and editing stitched everything together. The result is a Mustang that seems to magically change shoes mid-chase. For gearheads, it became one of the most infamous continuity quirks in car movie history. Collectors and restorers today debate which tire setup is correct for a tribute Bullitt Mustang. Purists argue for narrow white walls, while others insist the iconic look is black torque thrust wheels with performance rubber. Spotter's tip: authentic still photos from behind the scenes show mechanics swapping tires constantly, sometimes multiple times a day. The tire swap trick highlights how much improvisation went into filming. It wasn't about accuracy, it was about getting the shot. And if you think tire switching is funny, number 11 reveals how one Bullitt car actually disappeared for decades, hiding in plain sight. The hero car vanished into a garage. Here's the part nobody believed until it resurfaced. The Bullitt hero car, the one used for McQueen's close-ups, vanished for decades. After filming, it was sold to a Warner Brothers employee, then passed to a New Jersey police detective. Eventually, it landed in the hands of Robert Kiernan, a private owner in New Jersey, and then it disappeared. For years, enthusiasts speculated it had been wrecked, crushed, or exported overseas. McQueen himself reportedly tried to buy it back in the 1970s, but Kiernan refused. The car remained locked in his garage, unseen by the public. Here's the kicker: it stayed hidden for over 40 years. Dusty, worn, and untouched, it became a ghost in the Mustang community. Rumors swirled, but nobody could confirm its existence until Kiernan's son revealed it in 2018. Collectors went wild. The hero car was authenticated through unique details: camera mount holes, reinforced shock towers, and matching VIN documentation. Its reappearance became a once-in-a-lifetime automotive event. Spotter's tip: the hero car still bears rust, dents, and worn seats from filming. Unlike most movie cars, it wasn't restored. Its value lies in originality, scars and all. And if you think a car disappearing for decades is crazy, wait until you hear number 10, because the Bullitt Mustang actually became the world's most valuable Mustang when it finally went to auction. The world's most valuable Mustang. Here's the kicker: the Bullitt hero car became the most valuable Mustang ever sold. In January 2020, it crossed the block at Mecum Auctions in Kissimmee, Florida, and the hammer price stunned the automotive world: $3.74 million. Before that, the record holder was a Shelby GT 350R prototype, nicknamed the Flying Mustang, which sold for $3.85 million. But the Bullitt car was different. It wasn't a prototype or race car. It was a battered movie prop. Its dents, faded paint, and worn interior weren't flaws. They were the very essence of its appeal. What drove the price? Provenance. It was the car Steve McQueen drove on screen, authenticated with paperwork and film scars. Collectors battled furiously, knowing no other Mustang carried that level of cultural weight. The Kiernan family, who had hidden it for decades, watched their dusty garage relic become a crown jewel. Spotter's tip. The car was sold in its unrestored condition, complete with faded Highland green paint, patched panels, and missing emblems. Mecum wisely left it untouched because restoration would have erased its authenticity. The 3.74 million sale didn't just set a record, it proved that movie history could outweigh horsepower specs. And if money shocks you, number 9 reveals how even McQueen himself underestimated just how valuable his Bullitt Mustang would one day become. Steve McQueen tried and failed to buy it back. In the 1970s, years after Bullitt had cemented its cult status, Steve McQueen wanted his Mustang back. By then, the car was in the hands of Robert Kiernan, who had bought it as a family driver. McQueen reportedly called Kiernan directly, offering to buy the car for his personal collection. Here's the twist. Kiernan refused. He liked owning it, even if it was just another used Mustang to him at the time. He turned down McQueen's offer, and the actor never got another chance. McQueen died in 1980, never reclaiming the car he made famous. Collectors today see this as one of the strangest what-ifs in automotive history. Imagine McQueen owning the car until his death. Its value today would likely be astronomical, perhaps double or triple what it sold for in 2020. Spotter's tip. McQueen's letter to Kiernan, politely requesting to buy the car back, still survives. It's one of the most valuable pieces of automotive memorabilia tied to the Mustang, often displayed alongside the car itself at shows. The refusal preserved the Mustang's mystery for decades, but it also denied McQueen the chance to keep his own legend. And if you think losing out on a car sounds strange, number 8 proves the Mustang itself nearly didn't survive, because it spent years neglected in a garage. Years of neglect in a New Jersey garage. Before it became a multi-million-dollar icon, the Bullitt Mustang spent decades languishing in obscurity. After Robert Kiernan bought it in 1974, he drove it as a family car. His wife even used it for commuting to her teaching job. By the early 1980s, the clutch failed, and the car was parked in their garage, and there it sat, for nearly 40 years. Dust collected, rust spread, and tires deflated. At one point, Kiernan's son, Sean, used it as a makeshift workbench, stacking tools and boxes on its roof. Nobody outside the family realized the world's most famous Mustang was rotting in a suburban garage. Here's the kicker. Despite neglect, the family never sold it. Offers came, but they held firm, partly out of loyalty, partly because they didn't realize its future value. Spotter's tip. When the car was unveiled in 2018, the patina told its story. Original Highland green paint, worn through in spots, still clung to the panels. Restorers advised against repainting, arguing that the scars and dust made it priceless. The years of neglect paradoxically preserved the car's legend. And if you think hiding it in a garage sounds unusual, number 7 reveals how the second Bullitt Mustang, the stunt car, was hidden in an even stranger place, a Mexican junkyard. The stunt car resurfaces in Mexico. For decades, enthusiasts believed the Bullitt stunt car had been destroyed. It endured the punishing jumps and high-speed smashes in San Francisco, then was reportedly scrapped. End of story. Or so everyone thought. Here's the twist. In 2017, a Mustang shell turned up in Baja California, Mexico. It had been modified into a beat-up stunt racer for local events, stripped and patched over the years. At first glance, it looked like just another junker, but experts quickly noticed unusual welds and reinforcements. Could it be? Authentication followed. The welded camera mount points, reinforced suspension towers, and accident scars matched perfectly with film footage. It was the long-lost stunt car. Against all odds, it had survived. collectors went wild. Unlike the hero car, which was pampered later, the stunt car was raw and scarred. It wasn't beautiful, but it was authentic history, a battered veteran of Hollywood's greatest chase. Spotter's tip: the stunt car still shows crude welded patches under the floor pan and missing VN stampings, which were lost during filming repairs. Those scars confirm it beyond doubt. Its rediscovery doubled the Bullitt legend. 2 cars, 2 lives, reunited decades later. And if you think Mexico's stunt car story is bizarre, number 6 shows how even the movie props tied to Bullitt sparked decades of obsession. Bullitt memorabilia frenzy. Beyond the cars themselves, Bullitt memorabilia became an obsession. Posters, lobby cards, and McQueen's costume items all skyrocketed in value. But the strangest frenzy? Anything tied to the Mustang, no matter how small. Here's the kicker: original hubcaps, seat belts, and even bolts allegedly removed during filming have been auctioned for thousands. A single steering wheel, claimed to be from a Bullitt stunt car, fetched over $50,000. Collectors chased provenance more than condition. Authenticity was everything. Ford capitalized on this mania with modern Bullitt tribute Mustangs in 2001, 2008, and 2019, each painted in Highland green. These instantly sold out, fueled by nostalgia, but none carried the same aura as the battered originals. Spotter's tip: beware fakes. The memorabilia market is flooded with Bullitt parts that never touched the real cars. True items are backed by ironclad documentation, photos, letters, or notarized provenance. Anything less is risky. The memorabilia frenzy proves that Bullitt wasn't just a car movie. It was a cultural touchstone. People wanted a piece of that cool, even if it was just a scrap of metal. And if you think small parts selling for fortunes sounds crazy, wait until number 5. The ultimate reveal of how the Mustang itself nearly didn't survive to become a legend. The Highland green paint was never a factory option. Here's the kicker: the Bullitt Mustang signature. Highland green wasn't actually a Ford performance color. It was a fairly subdued shade, more often ordered on sedans and family cars than muscle machines. Yet today, it's one of the most famous paint colors in Mustang history. Why Highland green? Steve McQueen himself reportedly pushed for a dark, understated color. He didn't want chrome stripes or flashy graphics. He wanted the car to look like a street sleeper, something a real detective might drive. The muted green blended with San Francisco's gritty backdrop, giving the chase a sense of realism. During production, the movie cars were stripped of badges, spotlights, and even bright trim. What remained was a plain, menacing fastback. Collectors today consider it the ultimate example of less is more. Spotter's tip: genuine Bullitt tribute Mustangs always wear Highland green, but the original film cars had slightly dulled paint from constant use. That patina is impossible to replicate authentically. The irony? Ford never imagined Highland green would become iconic. They discontinued it in later years, only to resurrect it decades later for modern Bullitt editions. And if you think paint made history, number 4 shows how the Mustang's license plate became just as legendary. The license plate became iconic. Most movie cars get remembered for their shape or color, but the Bullitt Mustang? It also became famous for its license plate, JJZ109. Here's the twist: this wasn't a random prop. The plates were real California tags issued for filming. They appeared prominently throughout the chase, cementing themselves as part of the car's identity. Fans later memorized the number like a password into car culture. After filming, the plates disappeared. Rumors suggested they were trashed or stolen. For decades, collectors searched swap meets and garages, hoping to find the original set. Some even fabricated replicas, which became popular among Mustang enthusiasts worldwide. Today, tribute cars often proudly display JJZ 109, whether authentic or not. Spotter's tip: genuine 1968. California plates had unique fonts and reflective coatings that differ subtly from reproductions. Experts can tell within seconds whether a plate is the real deal. The enduring obsession with a piece of stamped metal shows how deeply the Bullitt Mustang imprinted itself on culture. Even its license plate became immortal. And if you think fans obsessing over numbers is strange, number 3 reveals how the car's interior mods were just as odd and not always functional. Interior mods weren't factory correct. Climb inside the Bullitt Mustang, and you won't find a stock interior. McQueen's car had subtle but unusual modifications that set it apart from showroom models. But here's the kicker: not all of them were functional. The wood-rimmed steering wheel was swapped for a sportier 3-spoke unit. The shifter carried a plain white cue ball knob instead of Ford's factory item. The dash gauges were left mostly stock, but some trim pieces were stripped to create a grittier look. Even the pony emblems were removed from seatbacks, keeping the car anonymous. These changes weren't performance-based. They were stylistic. McQueen wanted the car to look like a detective's tool, not a flashy muscle toy. But the stripped-down approach caused confusion for collectors decades later. Many assumed the car had been hacked up by owners, not realizing the changes were deliberate for the film. Spotter's tip: the authentic Bullitt Hero car still carries its original cue ball shifter and steering wheel, worn from filming. Clones often exaggerate interiors with aftermarket gauges or racing seats, incorrect details that purists notice instantly. The subtle mods prove that sometimes less is more. But if you think an altered interior is unusual, number 2 shows how even the film editing made the Mustang do things no real car ever could. The Mustang outran physics. Here's the twist: the Bullitt chase shows the Mustang doing things no real car could have survived. Suspension travel, tire grip, even acceleration defied physics at times. Why? Clever editing and Hollywood exaggeration. For example, in the hill jump sequence, the Mustang flies through the air at impossible angles. Realistically, that kind of landing would have bent the chassis beyond repair. In fact, the stunt car did sustain major undercarriage damage, but editing cut away before showing the aftermath. Similarly, the Mustang appears to shift gears endlessly, more than its 4-speed gearbox actually allowed. The illusion worked. Audiences believed McQueen's car was invincible, capable of chasing down anything. But behind the scenes, the car required constant patchwork. Mechanics welded frames, nightly swapped suspensions, and patched oil leaks just to keep it alive for the next take. Collectors today view these exaggerations as part of the legend. Spotter's tip: the Hero car still has camera mount holes drilled into its body, scars from the tricks that helped outsmart physics on screen. The Mustang's on-screen performance may have bent reality, but it cemented its immortality. And that leads us straight to number 1, the biggest reveal of all. The Bullitt Mustang almost didn't survive at all, because it was nearly scrapped for good. It was nearly scrapped for good. Here's the ultimate reveal. The Bullitt Mustang, the very car Steve McQueen drove, was almost destroyed. After filming Wrapped in 1968, Warner Brothers had no interest in preserving it. To the studio, it was just another used movie prop. The battered stunt car was sold for scrap, while the Hero car was quietly passed off to private owners. For years, both cars teetered on the edge of oblivion. The stunt car barely escaped a Mexican scrapyard. The Hero car lived as a daily driver until it broke down, nearly abandoned in a garage. Without a handful of lucky twists, both might have vanished forever. Here's the kicker. Studios routinely crushed cars after filming. They didn't see historical or collector value. If Bullitt's Mustangs had faced that fate, one of the greatest icons in automotive and film history would have been lost. Collectors today marvel at the odds. The fact that both Bullitt cars survived, one pristine, one scarred, feels miraculous. They represent two halves of a legend, the glamorous hero and the battered stunt double. Spotter's tip: the hero car's survival story is why it became worth $3.74 million, scars and all. So yes, the Bullitt Mustang almost didn't make it, but instead, it became immortal. Proof that sometimes history survives by accident. So what's the truth of the Bullitt Mustang? It wasn't a factory special edition. It wasn't built for racing glory. It was two ordinary Mustangs, beaten and bruised for Hollywood's sake. Yet those cars became immortal because Steve McQueen drove them through San Francisco with style, grit, and attitude no script could fake. The quirks, the flying hubcaps, the mismatched tires, the fake engine sounds, made it more real, not less. The years of neglect, the near-scrap fate, and the rediscovery decades later turned the Bullitt Mustang into a legend far greater than its specs. Which fact blew your mind? Was it McQueen's failed attempt to buy it back, the VIN mystery, or the $3.74 million auction? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you loved this ride through Bullitt's secrets, don't miss our deep dives into the Shelby GT 500 and the Charger Daytona, cars born of the same wild era. Until then, keep chasing legends.